I'm delighted to welcome tonight Captain Jorgen Berg, the speaker, who's of course one of our society members, so that's it, we get a twofer there. And his lovely wife Janice, who's come along to keep him honest. Jorgen's had a distinguished and very varied career, mostly in the merchant marine industry, initially in Scandinavia and then wider afield. He was born in Copenhagen and began working at the age of 7. He's got some work ethic there, I think, and before and after school he says he either was distributing milk, paint cans, paint and shoe boxes in the local area, or collecting new shoes from the shoe factory in Copenhagen. He began his seagoing apprenticeship in 1960 rather. At the age of 17, before gaining his master's first class certificate in 1966. He undertook national service in the Royal Danish Navy from 67 to 69 before becoming involved in the various Antarctic voyages, which he'll describe shortly. I'm not sure how they met, but I know he married his Australian wife Janice in Melbourne in early 73 and settled in Copenhagen for a few years. They sailed together on a few of his voyages as he worked his way up through the ranks, so to speak, to become the chief officer on a number of ships. His seagoing career largely ended in 77 as he embarked on a wide range of port-based positions for the Danish shipping company J. Lloydsen, with whom he had a long association and affiliation. These included working and living in, I have Louisiana, but it may well have been New Orleans, Dominican Republic and the Ivory Coast, amongst other places. After 5 years as a marine superintendent in Copenhagen, from 1982 to 87, he saw the light and decided that Australia would be his new home. From 1988 to 93, he worked directly for Asset Technologies and the Port of Melbourne Authority before setting up Berg Shipping Consultancy in Melbourne, which he operated for the next 20 years. He was a freelance consultant and contractor in ad hoc, temporary, short and long-term project assignments and contract work in port infrastructure and development, maritime logistics management, port and marine safety, ship operation and survey in Australia and worldwide. By his extensive maritime industry and business skills acquired over in the prior years. I counted 60 countries in which he'd worked, and he'd even had offices in Romania and France at some stages. He retired from full-time employment in 2013. Apart from his native Danish tongue and English, he's fluent in Swedish and Norwegian, but admits his Spanish, German and French. So, Jorgen, I welcome you and Janice here this evening to talk to us primarily about your adventures derived during your voyages, experience and observations in Antarctica. Thank you. I invite you to come and talk.
Right. So, we'll try. If you can't hear me, just yell. Okay. Before I go back to the first picture, I'll just show you that one because that was the one they talked about. That's the that one. She's in the landing ship tanks. She's there seen in Kerguelen, the French Antarctic island. Okay. I'll start here. That's an overview. You see, at that time, start with Macquarie Island and Heard Island. That was the two Australian sub-Antarctic bases, or stations as they call it. And there wasn't anyone down in the Antarctic mainland there. The area which marked, that represent 42% of the Antarctic, and that's the Australian claim. When we say Australian Antarctic territory, it is not ours, it is not owned, it is claimed by Australia. And that is according to the Antarctic Treaty, which came into force, fully into force in 1961. Only the signatories to the Antarctic Treaty was allowed to claim the areas down there. No one can claim is now, and Russia and America at that time decided not to claim anything. So, okay, I will just point, let's see, that was this little one. Doesn't work, that
Big one in the
little red button.
The big one in the middle, the round one.
Yeah, alright, sorry. This one there, that's a Kerguelen Island, that's a French, and that's about 300 miles to Jorgen Island. That was where we saw that other ship. Okay. We saw that one. I won't tell any more. David Dodd told you all about that one. The 6 ships or 6 like that. So that's right. This is why that was the other one. That was the other one which was owned by the Antarctic division on that time, Anari on that time, and she was said to be an older ship. She was going to be used to spot a place down in the Antarctic Peninsula, Atlantic continent, where a base, a station could be put on permanent. That was the field law, Director of Field Law's big aim, that was to get a station down in the Atlantic. I can here say she never ever made it. She was not suitable for the sea, she was not suitable for ice. She was built by wood, but she got some plating on the other side. The next one, see, I said the Director of Field Law, he was not satisfied with those 2 ships, and he wanted to be on the continent. So he was searching around for a better ship, and that took him 6 years, and then he found this one, Kista Dan, well known in the Australian and Arctic history. I had been on board that one for 10 months, not for the Australians, but for the British Antarctic Survey. That's what we come back to. So there's Kista Dan, as you can see, she's in the ice, of course, and she got this one up there. That's the house nest, or whatever. Up there, the advantage is that you have all the gear you want up there. Got engine telegraph, you get the rudder, you get everything up there. You can actually fully maneuver the ship from up there. And from up there, you have the good look down onto the ice, so you can actually see, where the best is for the ship to sail. This is how the ship is. This is taken in a dry dock in northern Europe when we came back from the British Antarctic. So this is the Kista Dan. You can see those ones, those 3 protect the propeller when the ship goes forward for the ice to get in and damage the propeller blades. This one up there, that's the ice net, ice knife, and that protects the ship from when she's going astern, so that big ice floes will not go in and hit the rudder and damage the rudder. There's one thing which was absolutely a no-no in those ships, that is to go astern without having the rudder midships. Because it's not protected, you would actually almost be fired for doing that thing. Those propeller blades there, they lasted on that ship until she was eventually demolished. We never ever lost one propeller blade from that ship. So this one was taken, this picture is taken in 1963. As the dimensions, see, metric ton dead weight, that is, for the ones who does not know about, the dead weight, for the ones who does not know what that means, that is the cargo and bunker oil together the ship can actually load. That's the dead weight of the ship. All ships, you mentioned it differently, displacement and things like that. in those cargo ships, that is what we mentioned, the deck plate tonnage. Usually you will find today that the new ships also have a deck plate tonnage of about 1,200 tons. You don't really need more for taking the cargo down, but you need a lot more space for scientists and things like that. May I also say at this stage that to any of the pictures we put up, if any one of you have a question to it, and it's a short question and I can answer it short, please do so. Otherwise, for general questions, everything else we'll wait till afterwards. But if you see something, put the question, I'll try to answer straight away. Okay, this is on the Kista Dan down to the Antarctic, trying to get into, in this case, to where below he wanted Mawson Station to be placed. And see the airplanes, we always have airplanes with us, and they were good for reconnaissance, finding the best way to the ice, and also going inland and see what you needed to find out like that. I think that the safety authorities, or whatever you call them, would have a fit. That was not be allowed. But on that time, a lot of other things was dangerous, so that was allowed. We did that. You also see another thing is, you see down there, you see one of those. I'll come back to those ones in the special things. And those ones, the airplanes, the Kista Dan, she always had the two Oscar float planes on board. You not necessarily more, but used for the service. There's another one. You can see the differences that here she's on skis and reeds. And you saw the other one, she was on floats. There, floats. So you could actually change around and gear them to what the best was, because in the water like that, you put them over the side and they took off on that. But in the other way, you had to have it on the neck. Sometimes we really got stuck in the ice. And on that time, it was thought that, well, maybe from the point of view of getting the crew, what you say, doing some work and things like that, to send them out to do it, this is a waste of time. It's an absolute waste of time to get the ship free like that. There's no way you can do that. We tried and things, but no way. They also tried the explosives, put the explosive down the ice, TNT. But when the explosive blows up, the shock is absorbed by the ice, and nothing really happens. So forget about that as well. Oh, this is where we are. This is Horseshoe Bay, and this is where Dr. Phil Law, where he realized that we should put up the first Antarctic station, called the Mawson Station. This is the first pictures where she's in. You can see that he's a very good captain on board there, because he has turned the ship around. He has done all this there, losing it up. He's turned the ship around so her bow is showing out. Because if you got the stern out and you got all the ice in, you will have problem getting out. You have the stern in, go out. That's the way of doing it. Alright, so you could see that we put it in so that you have some, what should you say, fast ice there. And that is an order for discharging. All the cargo down to the ice. And then you got the airplane down, and you got the snowcats. As we normal call them all snowcats, they are different types. To drag the cargo up to the station. Of course, you got the penguins around looking. They were always very, very curious for that. This is the official opening of the Mawson station 13th of February 1954 with the flag hoisting ceremony. That's official now. The very first Antarctic station, permanent Antarctic station. This is a dock. We use those ones to transfer cargo from the ship to the shore, cargo and personnel. And we borrowed them from the Australian Army, and we had several of them, normally the 2 on board each ship. And they were in use until 1970. When I got on board the Thala Dan in 1970, we changed to larks. Those ones doing exactly the same job, but maybe a bit more capable of it. They are amphibious, so they drive into the sea, they got a propeller aft, and they drive on the land, they sail on the sea, and they go alongside the ship, take the cargo, and the charter drive up to the station, and then off to the cargo at the actual station outside the huts wherever it is needed. That's what they do. And on the ship, they just lay alongside. This is the Thala Dan. Thala Dan took over from Kista Dan for the Australian Antarctic from Antarctica. And this picture there is actually from 1971 on the way to Casey, and you can see that she's on the way to Casey because she got one of the docks on board. I was first officer on that ship. It was later that ship my wife Janice also went to Europe on that one. We spent heaps amount of days on that one together, and in total I have been on board that ship for more than 500 days in total. She's there, you see the weather balloon, of course, they did some services and things like that, what you call it, weather services, on the way. She stopped in the ice there for a little while, at least, and that's what happened a lot. This is Magadan. Magadan and Thala Dan were sister ships. And the only difference was that Magadan had holes insulated, so she was fitted also to sail as a river ship. But there she is in the Antarctic service, and she got the crane on board. One of them was the pontoons, but there's no chance that she can take off in that ice. The thing is, was also, you look at that ice and you say, okay, sometimes we got stuck down there, and that is true. The rule for all the Laurentian, all the 4 Laurentian polar ships we went down there, was that you had to have provisions and fuel oil and everything on board so you could last 1 year in the ice. So you could actually overwinter in the ice if you got trapped, and to wait till the next year where someone gonna get you out. The only thing we did, if we could, was when we find out we were trapped. I haven't been down there for a year, I tell you, but if the ship was trapped, to get an icebreaker as close as possible, they normally couldn't get in. If we couldn't get out, they couldn't get in. And transfer some of the crew by helicopter over to the icebreaker, so that you only had absolutely what you say minimum maintenance crew on board to run, because you had to run an auxiliary engine all the time to keep tube pipes, everything warm, so it wasn't freeze like that. So that is this is the Magadan. This is the newest one of them, the Thala Dan. And here she is after they have made the, what you say, the helicopter deck bigger. And you see the little helicopter there. There used to be a hatch there, but they made that bigger, and that was, well, supposedly went more and more into helicopters, so that was better to do than that. This is the ship we took over from the Dan boats. When the Thala Dan, when she grounded in Macquarie Island, and eventually was scuttled because she was too damaged. She scuttled and she sank on the 24th of December 1987, and the ship which then waiting to go was Aurora Australis. You have heard that she has been mentioned before, Aurora Australis. You can also see that goes Peter helicopter there. She served 30 years in the Antarctic, and I don't know where she is now, but where is she? Dubai, maybe, yeah. Because of the Antarctic Treaty, and the people who runs all that stipulates that ships in the future had to have certain requirements in order to be allowed to run down in the Antarctic. Certain technical requirements. She does not fulfill that. So only the new ships are allowed to go to Antarctic without any modification. Of course, they can modify her if they want to do that. The next one, I put a picture of that one because we worked together with the French a lot, because we went to the French base, Dumont-Durville. That is their polar ship, the Astrolabe, and she works a lot together with Australians for the Antarctic. She also runs from Hobart down to Dumont-Durville, which is basically straight down. You can see she's a very modern ship. And that is, of course, our old ship now, Marina, which is the biggest, I would say, biggest ship of them all. She's 9,500 net weight ton. So, but she has a gross tonnage of 22,862. A lot more than the other ones. Where, for example, Astrolabe was only 3,000 dead weight ton. Astrolabe takes 60 passengers, she can take, I don't know how many, but heaps of scientists and things like that. So, those are the modern ships. We go a little bit back in time now, because we are back to where it all started, and that's Kista Dan. The soup is taken off the dinner table there, I can tell you that. There's not a change there. Not a change. You see, you say, all right, was that a special occasion? No. They always roll like that. When they went down there, there was actually, could you believe it, on the Kista Dan? No, Kista Dan had accommodation out under there. So, they had 12 passengers out there, 2 six bed cabins. Yeah. And when we started from Australia, and we said, so you're out there, and we said bye. And that means we saw them, we brought food out to them, but they had absolutely no desire to eat any food out there, because once she went like that, up and down, you couldn't go back on the deck, you would be absolutely washed. But this was normal on the trip down. That was why we were so happy when we reached into the ice. When we got into the ice, we just said, because there was no smell, no big waves, anything like that. Everything was calm, no howling wind. It was just lovely. So then we had the big dinners and everything like that while we were in the ice. Sometimes we got stuck a lot. And on the time when we were stuck like this is in Thala, when we were stuck on our way and we had been sitting there for a couple of weeks or something like that, it's actually me, but we went, trips around, sightseeing trips around, we walked around the trip, and sometimes we played football, sometimes we built igloos. Why not? I mean, you had to have something to take the time away, make it interesting, or photograph and crawl into it and out and expecting it. So, and when at one stage we have been stopped at actually a rock, unfortunately, and that was the Thala Dan. Struck a rock on the way to the French base, to Montreal, and we really got hold, and we had severe damage. We knew that. We got French expeditioners on board. The first thing they went for the lifeboats straight away. And I was the chief officer on that one and said, no one trusts the lifeboats. Then they got worried because I told the helicopter pilot to let go up in the air. Of course, they thought that was the last rescue. But we need to get the helicopter up from the deck before we got a 40-degree list. Because more than that, and you couldn't safety enough send the helicopter up in there. So I told the French helicopter pilot, go in, land in somewhere on a big ice floe and wherever you can, and wait until we call you back. So I told the French expeditioners that we would call him back. And I said, look at our crew. They're not going for the lifeboats. They are, we went out to have a measure of all the tanks because we wanted to know how much damage there was on the ship. And we found out, holy mackerel, hold one damaged tank, one starboard tank, two tank, one port side, and lower hold number one, as I said, all filling in with water. So we eventually managed to get to the French base to Montreal, and we asked the Frenchmen if they could dive down to find out if there was any way we could repair anything like that, so just temporary repair because we had to get out again, we had to break the ice. And with a damaged hull like that, and they came up and they said, really? No way. You had the divers, they were quite good at us diving in the ice field water and carrying down the forecastle of the ship. So we got all the water in the forward end of the ship. Of course, that means the forward end of the ship was down like that. That means the propeller and the rudder was up like that. That means you couldn't really sail. So we needed to get the stern back down. So we had to fill all the ballast tanks in the aft end of the ship. And the front end was taken care of itself because that was full of water. So we filled it back. And we were so deep in the water that we had about 30 centimeter freeboard from the main deck down. And we had to go down and back to dry dock, and we went for the dry dock in Williamstown in Melbourne. And one of the persons who was standing on the wharf looking at us, that was my wife Janice. And she said that when we came in, when she rounded this thing to get into the dry dock, she went, oh, like that. And we had the water coming up on the main deck on that side. But we knew that she was a strong-built ship. We knew that she just wouldn't sink. So even the company in Copenhagen thought we would sink at one stage. So they asked the American icebreaker, Staten Island, to follow us up. And she did for 2 days, and then we said, Staten Island, look, we can manage that our own. We won't sink. So you just go and do your usual business. Thank you very much. And so they did. And she got repaired, and she went further. You can see that there's a slight difference there. The good reader will notice that she's higher there. That's because she went to the shipyard in Frederikshavn. And we got an extra decking, more passenger cabins. We got expanding things like that. The ship was lengthened and all sorts of things. So when we went down next time, that was how we looked. We see the Adelie paintings there. They were never afraid of us. It's quite clear they were never afraid. They thought it was a big red wave. And the problems we had with the penguins was that if we discharged down to the ice, they wandered in under where we landed the cargo. And we could not move them. We had to grab them by the flippers and move them so we could land the cargo. And the amount of what was that? And the amount of problems, the trouble, they were screaming, they did not want us to move. But that was the business. We had to discharge. So there she is waiting for better. We cannot go into all that ice there, so we have to wait for a better thing. When you're on the ship, like when you see her in the ice on both sides, and you say, okay, she's trapped. Normally, she's trapped, she's screwed up at one stage 1.5 meter above a normal, water line where she is. And you say, so if you can't break the ice through, if we couldn't, we could just not move at all, then we had to wait. And you wait until the wind and the current suddenly goes in two different directions, opposite each other. And I was sitting on the bridge of Thala Dan at one stage around midnight or whatever, and suddenly I felt, phew, and went down 1.5 meter, and that indicated that the pressure on the ice was gone, and suddenly you could probably start breaking the ice. This is around Montevideo. Sometimes they help us, we help them. I was taking a motorboat over the barge with some equipment because of one of their snow cats, if we can call it that one. You can see it's gone down into, there's a crack in the ice just there, and she has gone down with one of the six there. And of course, you have to pull them up. You will see there's wires there also. That is because normally when they were traveling on the inland ice, they normally was tied up to each other. If one of them were down, they was tied up to the other one, they could pull them up again. And that happened sometimes. Sometimes disappeared, and that's of course, you could also see the seals. They were not that friendly to us, but that was alright. Penguins, those ones are young penguins, waiting for the mom and dad to come home with fish and krill. That was what they were eating, and either the mom or the dad took care of them, and they sometimes took trips out of 12 days or something before they came back. This is the Adelie. The other ones are, there's basically two kinds of penguins down there. The Adelie, and this is the Emperor. The Emperor penguin. The Adelie one weighs about 4.5 kilo. The Emperor penguin is about 40 kilo each. They're a lot bigger. This is the Thala Dan. We also went over to Cromwell Bay. You saw Cromwell Bay was marked on the original chart, and this is where the old Mawson's hut is. When we went there, she was still snowed in. There was a lot of snow in the hut. That's all cleared by now. But we went around and had an inspection of it and could report back what the situation was for the hut. That was interesting for me. We were a little boat party of 8 people together with a motorboat, and I was one of them. And got the little trip around. There's a bit of history. Mawson's hut. This is a picture taken by my father-in-law, who spent 15 months down at the Mawson station in 1961. And on that time, one of the transport inland was the sledges and the sledge dogs. They love the dogs, and you can see that, so they're having a little rest. And they use them a lot, and I think on that trip was probably 300 kilometers inland, something like that. And you can say that today, or I would say after 1994, dogs was not allowed in the Antarctic anymore because they are not a natural species. Anything which does not originally belong to the Antarctic must go back. That also means that all the rubbish from the stations, which has go up because you just chucked it out the back door, all the things like that was collected and all sent back on the ships. And that is the big thing they have to do today. They send it back, everything goes back. Nothing is left out in the Antarctic. Sometimes we have heavy cargo, and you can see this is the tank. This is actually the French base in Montpellier, and they use 4 snowcats to pull that big tank up. it's good that it was, if you say solid ice, which is just down to, I don't know how in the world we got that out on the water. But that was the way we did it. So that's Dumont d'Urville. And sometimes when the ice disappeared, or got less, then we could bring the ship in, closer in, and then we just had a little short trip with a barge all to the French gantry crane, which is there, lifting up the cargo and landed it here, where the snowpacks took it and took it up to the station. That was how the French worked it at that time. See, you would have noticed that not much container traffic at that time, but see, this is in 70s, beginning of 70s. This is actually since 1971 too. This is an aerial photo of Thala Dan in Dumont d'Urville area. The base is actually over here. So you have the fast ice there to transport things until that breaks up, or we break it up or whatever. But it is quite an interesting thing to navigate through all those things, as you can imagine. Firstly, of course, you don't know how tall the rocks are underneath on the sea. They come up like that, like a church tower, something like that. And you got a few carving icebergs over there as well. This is just a picture of it could look like, closely sightseeing, Kista Dan in the ice. Still got an airplane on board there, but there's no way you could use that one. And it's just a nice area. In the beginning, before the ducks and the locks, cargo was transported on those pontoons there. Those was invented by the Americans. And the Australians took them over and used them quite successfully. This one is how the cargo was stacked on a pontoon alongside the ship, dragged in, and this is actually on Macquarie Island, taking in like that. So that was how we did it on that time. I was not born on that time. This is Macquarie Island seen today. Actually, I understand now from the late news in the last couple of days that the Australian government is going to totally refurbish that station now, down there, and really build it up. And that's good, because at one stage she was deemed only to be a summer station. So people left in winter and only stayed in the summer. Now she's a full-time round station. And the first station on Macquarie Island was really made in 1911. Douglas Morton established a telegraph station there because it was easier for the transport up from to transport the radio transmission from the Antarctic and up to Australia via the Macquarie Island. This is a Morton station seen today. Those pictures, which I call today pictures, they're taken from the Australian and Arctic Division, so we know that they are the fresh one. Not the one they put on the photo, but the one where they have the camera going out and say the temperature, because then I know that is today.
The generator's gone now.
The generator gone now.
Probably in that one. A little way.
So anyway, okay, this is Davis Station. The next one, east of Mawson. You saw that we had the Mawson and the Davis and the Casey. That's the three stations on the continent, and then we had the two South Atlantic ones. This is Casey Station today.
That's the old one.
Sorry, what?
That's the old one.
Is that the old one? So we've got a new one.
Redstone.
No, the Redstone was the temporary, or not the temporary, the new built Casey station, which was made in 1967, 68, something like that, because there was a milk station close by, and the milk station was an American station they built for the geophysics year, and then the Americans gave it to the Australians, and the Australians took it over, and then while they was using that one, they built the Brextat station, which is Casey, and that's only 2 kilometers away from milk station, just across the sea, basically, the bay. This is the Dumont Durville station today, the French one. Back in time, when I was on the Kista for the British Antarctic Survey, I went down to the Antarctic in 1962. So I was 19 years old, and we went down to Halley Bay Base, as it was called at that time. Halley Bay Base was slowly getting, covered in ice and snow, and they built new buildings all the time. This is a fairly new building, that one, but still, this one building there, but still being covered in ice. Below buildings, that was the way down. You had to, because they were under the snow, under the ice, so you had to go up and you had to climb down into them while they were crushed by ice. And when I said crushed, this is how it looked underneath. They lived in those stations, only existed for about 6 years. Then they built a new station. Further inland, usually 11-20 kilometers further inland, because the ice moved out 400 meters maybe here towards the sea. So it took the stations with them, of course, and eventually you'll see the station in the sea. So the Englishmen did that for about 5 times, 6 times, 5 times. And then they found out a new way of doing it. This is a new type of station. This is Halley Bay. Not called Halley Bay anymore, just Halley. And that's on hydraulic skis. So when this one has moved out towards the sea, they got the tractors and they move each module further inland, 11-20 kilometers inland. And they have only with this one only done that once, and that was in 2020 because big cracks in the ice. So they moved that inland and continue doing that. And every time there's a huge crack in the ice, they will move it in. They move 1 or 2 of those accommodation blocks, if you could call it. And have a look. That is how it looks today. It's almost like being home. You compare that to the other picture where you lived in the down under the ice. This is how they are today. On the skis, hydraulic skis. The Englishmen also do a lot of the development. This is the area where we went to the Kista. This is one of the new, not the newest, but the second newest ship, the James Clark Rush, and she is moored at the Hotea station. Hotea is what they call the new capital of Antarctica. And then this Hotea is down on the western side of the peninsula, down there. That's a way to do it, instead of all that, the large docks and things like that. You go alongside and wacko, you got everything there. The newest ship they have is called Sir David Attenborough. That's the newest. Alright, the Australian government wanted to do something with the, the surveillance, if you can call it that way, inspecting other stations and things like that, which according to the Antarctic Treaty, you are supposed to keep a little bit of an eye on other stations. So they proposed the Danish aerodrome, which you see is there, and you can see that 4.5 kilometer exit road, that's down to the Danish research station. However, that paved runway was never built or was cancelled in November 2020. So just recently, just cancelled. I don't know the reason for it, why it was cancelled, but we might come to that why. In between, you use the airplanes landing. This is actually an Australian airplane landing on the Wilkins runway airstrip that is 70 kilometers south of Casey base. So you land there. You land most of the year, but there's 3 months where the ice is too soft that you simply cannot land there, so you have to. And you have bigger planes. The Americans always made it big. And they come with those ones. That's the, I even can tell you what type they are. That's the Hercules. Oh, God, I don't know. You know the types of C-1s, maybe the Hercules and God knows what. Huh? That's the Americans. The names like that. This is the Australian helicopters. They were in charter. But now I understand also for a couple of days ago that the Australian government has said we will buy 4 helicopters for use in the Antarctic. They will be used on the Naina, and they will also be based in Davis, where the aerodrome was supposed to be. And so 4 new helicopters. Well, they also said about drones. And it was mentioned that they would get some drones for scientific work and also for a bit of a surveillance. And the problem is, as you will come to see, that this is Mawson Station, Davis Station, and Casey Station. And you can see we got 3 Chinese stations up there, inlaid there. Got a Russian station up there too somewhere, got marked, called Progress. We got down here somewhere, there's Mini, they call it. But this is the Chinese ones. It's amazing to think that while we are supposed to have a look at all the stations and keep an eye on them, the Kunlun station has never been visited since it was made in year 2009. So what, 11, 13 years ago, has never been mentioned. You wonder what the hell goes on there. Well, as I mentioned, in the Antarctic Treaty, there's 3 things you must not do: no mining, no military, and no nuclear atomic research exercise for the testing. So those ones are supplied by, this is a Chinese ship, the Chinese one, the Shulong. This is the second used. She got one called Shulong number 2, that means snow dragon. But that's one, they actually help each other down there. Davis, he helps the Australians going into Davis and vice versa and things like that. All big smiles and things like that. But still, in my opinion, what goes on in go up, don't go. Okay, that's the thing. This is the author. As a lieutenant in the Royal Danish Navy, and I guess that you would also like to see what ship I served on, and that's the next one. This is what you would call a mini-corvette. It's an anti-submarine warfare ship built according to American drawings. We got 9 of those, and Andrew was giving a little mark with one of them. This is called Danielle. There's one called RAN, R-A-N, which stands for Royal Australian Navy, but that is actually the name of the ship, one of the ships. Okay, thank you. Any questions now? Any questions to anything of all that? Yes.
I've noticed that I put an article on the website the other day from the Royal Navy. HMS Protector was down there, and they're saying that the Sunshine Glacier down there has shrunk 1/7 in 20 years.
Yes.
Due to climate change, so it's happening down there.
It is really happening, yes. Did I mention where the you have heard about that new ice carving down there for a couple of days ago? I think they mentioned. Yes, and that actually happened in the Shackleton ice shelf. Shackleton ice shelf is midway between Verde and Casey, so about 400 kilometers west of Casey Base in the Australian and Antarctic territory, which is the claim. Sad to say that. So that is what that happened, and that iceberg we carved, ice shelf we carved, I believe, is about the size of New York City. So you have a lot. You had also for half a year ago, or at the what is it, the English base down there, the Halifax base, there was a big one called A1 or whatever we carved that was huge, and that's moving slowly out too. You can see it happens more and more and more and more. And I understand not just the carving, but also the sea ice disappearing, with the size of, they say, for each year, the size of all the sea ice around the Antarctic is the same as the area of California. So it's a lot which disappears. Eventually, you can slide down around in a yacht if you got water, if you got the towns up over the things. Any other questions? Or is that sufficient? Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yes.
You mentioned the name Ran.
Yes.
I'm following a couple of Swedish people that are sailing around the world at the moment in a sailing boat called Ran, R-A-N. And it attracted my attention when I saw R-A-N, that they pointed out it was nothing to do with the Royal Australian Navy, but it's pronounced Ran, and it's a Swedish word. Does that ring a bell?
It is a Nordic word,
Nordic word.
and all those ships was called up after what you say, should I call it King Neptune's friends. Because one of the ships is actually called Neptune. So it is his dryads, his helpers, you know, the ladies around, what you call it, and all those. So yes. So that's the, and the Sweden, Norway, Denmark was all Nordic, and we had the same god, you know, Odin and Thor, and things like that. So that's where those names come from. Anyone else?
I've got one.
You got one?
Yes, I mean, what that draws out is that we've had a very close affiliation with Danish icebreakers over the years.
That's right.
More so than, why didn't we go British or why didn't we go American? Well, can you explain why we had this particular affiliation for the Danish ships?
That was simply because of the law, the law of the Navy. He wanted a ship to reach the Antarctic continent to establish that base. And he searched 6 years around. He tried with the Woman, he tried with White Earth, he also got Totten, which I haven't shown a picture of, got Dorsal, which I haven't shown a picture of, tried all those things. Then he decided, no, wait, you need a real good ship. And then he was advised that the Kista Dan was built in a Danish shipyard, like all of those boats were, and they were built for East Greenland trade. East Greenland is always covered in pack ice. So they were actually built for it, and when the West Harbours, as the agent told him, as that name said, wacko. And he contacted them and said, would you be interested in sending that ship down here? You know, when you're not using it in Greenland, because we could only go to Greenland in the summer, and in the winter time, Danish winter time, what do? They go up. That was what you did. So, send it down there. That's just how it started. And of course, he was very, very pleased with Kista Dan, I tell you. Even she was rolling like that. He was very pleased with that. So, of course, they went to Thala Dan, Market Dan, and Thala Dan. Yes?
Yep.
Anyone's on? Yes?
Given that the Antarctic Treaty has divided the continent, and Australia has a certain amount. In fact, I think the largest amount, isn't it?
Yes.
That's from the even larger than the Americans. How come the Chinese can suddenly put bases within the Australian Antarctic territory?
The treaty allows any nation, and there's about 52 nations which has established themselves down there. Any nation can go in on any other territorial claims, if I can say that, and build a base anywhere they want. That's why we, on the Australian Antarctic territory, and the Chinese, the Russians, the gosh knows what. There's a lot of different ones. America and Russia decided on that time when the Antarctic Treaty came into force, into full force in 61, but it was made in 57, I think, or something like that they would not make a claim. They would just build the stations. So everyone can do that. We have the most strangest stations down there. India has stations down there. Italy has stations down there. I mean, there is from Dumont-Durville inland, there is a joint station called Concordia, and that is the French-Italian station, for example. But you have Malaysia, you have all sorts of countries which just feel that they like a bit of ice between the toes. That's how I look at it. It must be very expensive for them. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Anyone else? You got your chance. Yes. Yes.
Is Hobart the main supply-based Australian continental supply port for the work done down
Yes.
south?
Now it is. It used to be Melbourne.
Used to be Melbourne.
It used to be Melbourne.
Okay.
When I was sailing on those ships, we always went into North Wharf 5, 6, 7 in Melbourne and loaded everything there.
Okay.
Then we went south. Sometimes when we came from the south, we went up and we just got into Hobart to get some voyages and things like that. And when we came down with the French cargo, we went into Hobart to get green stock with the French light down there. And so, but Melbourne was the main base. On that time also, the headquarters for Anari was in Melbourne.
Okay.
That moved to Hobart. And then in that case, everything was then geared up to Hobart, because of course it's closer. And so now the main aim is Hobart. It could happen that the ships still go to Melbourne, but that has to be for a very particular reason. Something they have to, maybe they have to pick up or something like that. But it's very unusual. Now it's Hobart.
Well, thank you, because I remember them coming to Melbourne in the early 70s, coming into the Yarra, the North Wharf, etc.
North Wharf. We always have them in North Wharf, and I've been in North Wharf a lot.
There we go.
You know, that was it. Yes, yes. Anyone else?
Just one question, is that a boat was going home?
Sorry?
Is that a boat was going home there?
Yes, it is. Good guess. The boat was 40mm gun.
Just look for you.
We had that, and of course we had the anti-submarine things here too. Depth charters, and we were allocated a certain number of depth charters per year, as you can imagine. Every budget is any navy. So of course, coming the end of the year, and we still had the depth charters. What did we do? We went out to the fishing area east of Antarctica, and we dropped the 2 depth charters. Boom, boom, boom. And then we had the zodiacs in the water, scooping up all the fish that came up like that. Not fish, but stunned. In with it, and then we supplied the Air Force at Bornholm, the Navy, the Army, and everyone at Bornholm for the New Year's fish. We did that every year. We love that. Yes. Today you wouldn't even dream of trying. Can you imagine? On that time, we actually had to amuse ourselves, because if you say, all right, if you say, was there any active duty while I was down there in not Antarctic, but on those ships? Yes, I was on those ships, the anti-submarine warfare ships, from 67 to 69. Somehow you would know that that was the year where the Soviet re-invaded Czechoslovakia. So while we were on board that island, which the Russians always would have loved to take, east in the Baltics, the Russians suddenly sent a navy down, 44 ships, down alongside Poland, East Germany, and in, because they expected that NATO would help Czechoslovakia. Even Czechoslovakia was not a member of NATO. You had a little bit of the same situation with Ukraine today. But that was what they feared. So we were, by the Danish government, sent down to find out what they were doing, those 44 ships, which was the best warship they could get out of Kaliningrad and Leningrad and all that was it. So we looked at all that and we went in, sailing in between them because they were so high in the water and they dumped the guns like that, but they couldn't fire because so we were down there. We were manning the gun, but we had a little item in our pocket things, and that was the artillery officer had that, and as long as he kept his thumb on it, the gun could not fire. I had another one, and that was also, as long as I kept my thumb down, the radio station would not blow up, because it was top secret material we have on board, you know, we were really spy ships at that time. So we went down there, and the Danish government said to me, look, keep your radio open, we want to hear the first and single shot. that means they were saying about the Russians would shoot at us and that would start the Third World War. It didn't, but shit, it was exciting. It was after things like that, we did not worry about blowing a couple of dead cartridges up in the air to get a bit of a fish, you know, who would say anything like that, not after things like that. Okay, any more?
Bornholm has lots of home breweries now.
Yes,
I was there 2 years ago.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
That was a fascinating insight into a part of the world that most of us really don't know anything about. Certainly different. And certainly a scale that I still find a little difficulty getting my head around as well. You know, you're talking about those areas of ice and land, an area of ice, melting ice, as big as California. You certainly had the adventures that we were anticipating you would have, being stuck in the ice for 6 or 8 weeks. Some might be a little concerned about it, but it seemed to provide ample opportunities for sport, photography,
Nicholas.
wildlife observation. That was really intriguing, thank you. I had no idea quite what you were going to talk about, but it was really wonderful, and I think you'd all agree that was a great insight.